or peers, Jewish peers. And my father is actually not Jewish, so I would be practice Jewish traditions at my mother's house, and then not so much with my dad at his house. And then it was... So my family always sort of just did the holidays. That was our main Jewish tradition. And then as we got older, my mom remarried, we started going to synagogue more often. But even today, I definitely consider myself like more culturally Jewish than religious, but I do all the religious holidays. Though I don't do Purim as much. It's actually a minor holiday, and my primary association with it is I always thought of it as a kid as like Jewish Halloween, because it's a holiday where you dress up and get in a costume. And my family was big theater people, which I still am as a professor of theater. And so my memories of Purim growing up were dressing up and singing musical theater show tunes that have to do with the story of Purim, or are loosely connected. So I'll talk more about the Purim performance traditions in a little bit, but I'll pass it to Richard.
Sure. Hey, guys. Thanks for being here. Let's see where to start. What's funny is when you ask people, what was your childhood like? Oh, it was normal. So what's a normal, everyone has a different idea of what normal is. For me, personally, I have an older sister, 2 younger brothers, so there are 4 of us around. My father was raised Orthodox Jew from the New York area. He was born and raised in Brooklyn and Long Island. I said that on purpose, Long Island. They always pronounce it with one word. It's not long, it's not island, Long Island. It's all one word. My mother, born and raised in Philadelphia, so a slightly different culture between those 2 cities. And my grandfather on my father's side was a bit of like a religious leader in his synagogue. And so he would run some services, especially Passover Seders, for the community. So there was a little bit of a clash of culture a little bit sometimes in my house, because my mother was raised very Reformed and my father very Orthodox. So there were weird things going on in our household, and weird meaning my mother grew up eating bacon and ham and so forth, which of course is in the Jewish religion is unkosher. And so my father would get upset whenever she would bring bacon in the house. Also, Passover is right around the time of Easter. And my mother would always have an Easter basket on our table with chocolate, bunnies, and eggs, and those little peeps, and the candy eggs, and jelly beans. And he would yell and scream and complain. And I noticed as he was yelling and screaming and complaining and leaving the room, he would slowly, he would very carefully and indiscreetly or discreetly grab a few pieces of candy as he left the room and stuff his pockets. So there was a little bit of conflict growing up with our Judaism. But just like Clara had mentioned that, there was the religious aspect and the cultural aspect. And we did practice Judaism in the house. We several areas like especially Passover, Hanukkah, for Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, we would go to synagogue. Also for Yom Kippur, those are the high holy days. So we would go to synagogue for that. But then other than that, like Clara had mentioned, it was a lot of culture around the house. We do have mezuzahs on our doorposts, which represent, if you go back to your memories of the story of Passover from last year, when I offered a presentation on Passover, you may remember we talked about how a lot of Jews took the blood of a lamb and, if I can say it, smeared, because hey, this is the place to say it, smeared some blood on the doorpost. But now we don't use blood, we have a mezuzah that represents that. So we had mezuzahs on our doorpost. I still have mezuzah on our doorpost. So we still have culture in our household. So there you go. Thank you, Clara.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the story of Purim, and this I'll read this. It's a rough plot of what this holiday is about. So in 5th century BCE, Haman, who is prime minister to King Ahasuerus, who is the king of Persia, Haman had a plot to kill all the Jews in the kingdom, and this plot was because he encountered a Jew named Mordecai who wouldn't bow to him, and Mordecai was like, "I'm Jewish, I can't bow to you. You're not my God," and no Jews other Jews will bow to you. And Mordecai was not thrilled. So Haman came up with this plot to murder all the Jews. Simultaneously, or kind of a side plot, King Ahasuerus ordered his wife Vashti to dance nude before him and his royalty, I guess, I don't know, his bros, and she refused and was put to death. So King Ahasuerus needs a new queen, and Mordecai won't bow to Haman. So Ahasuerus holds a festival to find his new queen, and Mordecai convinces, it's unclear if it's his niece or his cousin, some family member related to him, named Esther, to enter the pageant, and Esther wins and becomes Ahasuerus' new queen, and queen of Persia. And of course, Esther being related to Mordecai, she is Jewish, but King Ahasuerus does not know that. So meanwhile, Haman is preparing by building a gallows to murder all the Jews. He's preparing for this, and King Ahasuerus throws a party, and Esther gets the king a little drunk and uses that time when he's susceptible to being persuaded of things to say, hey, I am Jewish, please don't murder me or my people. And so Ahasuerus agrees. He doesn't want his new wife to be murdered or Jews, so he calls off Haman's plan, and Haman instead is hanged on the gallows he had built for Mordecai. And then this part of the story is not always told in the holiday festival, but Esther then subsequently calls for revenge and the murder of Haman's son, and there's a battle where 75,000 Persians are murdered in retribution. So that's sort of the dark side of that story that is not usually celebrated in the fun Purim holiday. Anything to add with that story?
No, that was great.
Okay.
From my upbringing as well, I never heard about the bloody battle.
Never. Yeah, that is not generally part of the fun dress up thing, but I think it is a particularly important part of the story to tell. So that's the story of Purim, the history, religious story of it. But then there's the Purim holiday, which celebrates this story. So it's celebrating the victory, the saving of the Jews. Purim, the word means lots, because basically Haman cast a lottery system to figure out what day he would murder the Jews. So that's where the name comes from. So it's usually, we've just passed it, it's usually sometime in February or March, and it's told in the book of Esther, which is known as the Megillah. So during Purim, you read the Megillah, you tell the story, and there are parades and carnivals and festivals and costumes and something called a spiel, which I will talk more about in a minute. So it's a very fun, joyful, silly festival that has a very, as many Jewish holidays do, it's very fun and lighthearted, and there's a dark side of and we're celebrating that we didn't die yet again. So that's, you see that in Passover as well. It's this very fun dinner that we all have, and it's and we're celebrating that yet again we didn't die. So it's a theme in a lot of Jewish holidays.
I was just going to mention one thing where the Megillah, it's a little bit unusual for those of you, especially maybe Dr. Sewell, where our Torahs generally have two scrolls, and you scroll both at the same time, so the text keeps moving one way. But the Megillah is only one scroll, and you pull it out like that. So it's just something unusual.
Interesting. There's also there's a lot of Jewish theory around there's this story, of course, and I'm going off script a little bit, Richard, forgive me, but this there's a lot of queer theory around the story of Esther as a coming out story, right? She's coming out to King Ahasuerus as Jewish. There's also a very feminist take on the story of Vashti refusing to dance naked at the king's command, right, and being punished for it, but standing up for herself. So there's beyond just Jewish takes on the story, there's some feminist and queer theory around the story that's pretty interesting if you're into those subjects. Okay, so I'm a theater professor, so I get excited about Purim because there's a theater tradition associated with it, which a lot of my theater history students are here to help us out in a moment. So the theater performance associated with Purim is called a spiel. So that's that fun word there. So in the 2nd century, Purim festivals started happening in the spring in conjunction with other spring festivals. And then by the 5th century, Jews started having bonfires where they would burn effigies of Haman, who was the bad guy in our story. It's not on here, but the bonfires were like people had a lot of strong opinions. Non-Jews were like, what are these Jews doing? And there was a lot of like pushback against this celebration here. And so by the 15th century, we started having the Megillah, the story of Esther, the book of Esther and the story of Purim being read aloud, and start getting audience participation happening. And that's where this starts turning into more of a performative tradition. So by the 16th century, we have the first appearance of a proper Purim spiel, which got super popular and just continued to grow until today. So 17th and 18th century is really the heyday of the spiel. Usually they were telling the Purim story of Esther, but sometimes other biblical stories. And these performances really mixed like the religious story with secular elements to add to the comedy. So they're very fun, comedic performances. They also often pulled in like local happenings, local allusions, jokes, parody. There was music and song. People would talk in gibberish, which was is like kind of common performance thing coming out of a lot of traditions, notably Commedia dell'arte in Italy, but where you're creating a character who perhaps is like very intelligent, but not really. So they're pretending to be intelligent. So they'll just start living and start talking in gibberish. So that was done in these Purim spiels, and also acrobatics. So just really lively, almost like circus-like events, but not in circus venues. They were usually done in the home. The stories and the performances would break taboos, were often sort of lewd and profane. They relied heavily on improvisation, which you'll see in our spiel today. It's not theater the way you see it today with a proscenium where the audience is out in the house, right? It was theater done up close and personal with a performer talking to you, and you knew it was a performance, and I'm talking to you about, isn't it terrible that King Ahasuerus wants to do this, right? Having that interaction. And what's complicated about studying the spiel is that it's a tradition, like many performance traditions in a lot of cultures, that is passed down orally. So there's not a lot of scripts, there are some, but it's part of the reason you don't see spiels performed on a stage today very often. A, because it's associated with a holiday, but B, because we don't really have that many scripts from this time period anyways. So it was an improvisatory oral tradition that you grew up learning to do. In the 17th and 18th centuries, usually it was young boys who would perform. No women were allowed to perform. And the boys were usually dressed in disguise because they were breaking taboos and being kind of profane and rude. So the disguises helped protect them so that they could do these stories. And so troops would travel through people's homes. And so they'd show up at your house and say, like, we're doing a spiel. And they'd just take over your living room. And the spiels could last like 15 minutes or 3 hours. So it could just be a short entertainment or a whole evening. And at the end of a spiel, at the end of a character performing in a spiel, they would just sit down with the audience and become one of the audience members. So once Vashti is dead, the young boy playing Vashti would sit down at the table and become an audience member. And at the end, they'd say, hey, can you give us some money, begging for tips basically, or food. So it was a very like kind of community theater vibe done in your home, which is cool. And this is just a Purim of a spiel happening. So you can see, it's not a great resolution, but you can see the masks happening and the music, and that it's this real family affair.
Hey, I'm going to talk about Purim traditions. So, looking up here, let's see. I highlighted 7 Purim traditions that I thought were kind of cool. Growing up, I'm familiar with most of them, especially the carnival-like, it's kind of like a Jewish Mardi Gras, lots of music, loud, party, food, things like that, happy, joyous times. And so, kind of like Mardi Gras, dressing up in costumes is a fun and significant part of Purim. And it's likely the most widely recognized aspect of the holiday. Now, I never dressed up during Purim, I wish I did. I didn't know. And I went to Hebrew school, but I remember we didn't really dress up in Hebrew school. This tradition symbolizes the hidden miracles in the story of Esther and adds to the joyous atmosphere of the holiday. One of the central traditions of Purim, which is also a mitzvah.
Hi, Town.
Speaking of mitzvah, or commandment, is the public reading of the Megillah. There you go. Also known as the Book of Esther, which recounts the story of Purim. The most important tradition is to make lots of noise at the mention of Haman.
Boo!
Like that. Our antagonist's name during the story. Making Hamantaschen, triangular pastries filled with sweet fillings. Hey, look what we have here. Triangular pastries filled with sweet fillings.
That's because Haman's hat was a triangle. Or we also have Hamantaschen very much not in the shape of a triangle because my baking did not go so well.
I didn't say anything. Eating them. I'm sure they're delicious.
They're very tasty.
Yeah.
Not more than one attempt in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So making them with sweet fillings such as poppy seed, jam, or chocolate is a favorite Purim tradition. Eating them is a reminder of Haman's defeat at the hands of courageous Queen Esther.
Mm-hmm.
The last few. A key practice of Purim is giving food gifts to friends and family, known as mishloach manot. I think I said that appropriately, at least for a Jersey Jew with, that. Mishloach manot. These packages usually contain at least 2 different types of food, Hamantaschen and fruit or candy, and the sharing helps strengthen community bonds. A celebratory feast is another traditional part of Purim. Families and friends gather to enjoy a joyous meal that typically includes bread, meat, wine, and other holiday favorites. It seems like a lot of our holiday dinners, bread, meat, wine. Am I right, Claire?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you covered it right there.
Except for Passover, no bread.
It's customary on Purim to give charity, sometimes we call it tzedakah, to people who need it. These acts of kindness are meant to ensure that everyone can partake in the holiday celebrations regardless of their circumstances. And the celebratory energy of Purim lends itself to carnivals. Now, this is what I remember as a kid. Many Jewish communities will have large-scale carnivals to celebrate the holiday. This is a chance for communities to come together, celebrate, and again, raise the level of joy for everyone. For me, particularly in Purim, what I remember of Purim is begging my parents for like $4 to $5 so I can buy some cookies at Purim. And there are always either the Hamantaschen, or I don't know if you're familiar with this, like someone will always have a cookie with a large like Hershey Kiss in the middle. Those are always there. I have no idea why, but that's what I remember of Purim, and just fun times and music and things like that. So, to make tradition.
Yeah. Okay, so we are going to watch a very hastily rehearsed and mostly improvised Purim spiel by my theater history class / the theater improv troupe, some of them, to get a sense of the story and the silliness. And one thing to note is I mentioned that the spiels incorporate like local characters or traditions or topical political characters or traditions. So you will see at least one of those in this spiel today.
Once upon a time, advisor to the king Ahasuerus, Haman,
Boo!
encountered the Jew Mordecai.
Well, what are you doing, man?
Just minding my business.
You're a Jew, aren't you?
Yeah.
Fun as balcony.
Is your gross?
I just made comedy legal again. You need the balcony.
Meanwhile, the king asks his wife Vashti to dance naked in front of all of their friends. Dance, woman!
Nah.
Die.
Oh, God.
So he needed a new food. Haman, who was super
Boo!
told King Ahasuerus to kill all Jews.
Look, man. You eat previous holiday and you kill the Jews. They are not getting on my eggs, and they are horrible. They are eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. You've got to kill them all.
Okay, I see where you're coming from, and I agree.
I'm so
All the
glad
ones
you
should die.
My heart is acting.
Thank you. So, meanwhile, Mordecai tells his niece/cousin Esther that she should be queen.
Look, we gotta get rich. We gotta get this man off of X. Can you marry the king for the greater good? Fine.
And so King Ahasuerus and Esther become married.
So beautiful. Do you like my party?
Yeah.
I'm really drunk. Oh, okay. I accept.
Yes! Esther, who is Jewish, decided that she would come out to the king and convince him not to kill any more Jews.
Glug, glug. I'm Jewish, and you shouldn't kill the rest of my people. You should kill Haman instead.
Boo!
Yeah, I'll do that.
Bet you all call it Twitter anyway.
Die!
Oh wait, where's the court? Hold on. I don't know where this song is. Bravo.
Yay!
Oh, lovely. So that's a very silly, hastily rehearsed example of a spiel, but you can see topical characters, music, that improvisation is really emblematic of a Purim spiel. Thank you so much, my generous theater students, for that. Questions before we eat the rest of the Hamantaschen?
I think the number one question is, can we eat more Hamantaschen?
I think that's honestly the question on my head. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Kundin and Dr. Schwartz, for coming out and sharing your presentation with us. It was very well done. Give them another round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
The Hamantaschen that we have
Yes.
orange marmalade or orange.
Orange
correct?
marmalade, yeah.
Orange marmalade. And then also we have here strawberry, chocolate, and orange marmalade as well. I'm going to pass some around.
These are giant ones that are.
So we'll bring, if you want to take one. If not, I totally understand. Yeah, please. Sure, we got, oh, go ahead. Let me know how it tastes. I have no idea.
They're really good.
They are,
Okay.
I have one of the strawberry ones.
Oh,
Those
good.
are massive. I don't have them.